Okay, so you've mentioned the nervous system quite a bit during our conversation. Tell me a little bit about kind of what nervous system regulation is, why we should care about it, and then are there any like simple tools, like similar to the mindfulness suggestions that you gave us, that youth coaches, parents, and athletes can implement? You know, I obviously, if anyone doesn't follow Emily on social media, you definitely should, because there are some really great examples. I had my son doing the rocking and the patting the other day because it feels good, right? Why does it feel good? You know, so would love to hear a little bit more of your explanation and maybe just some tips that you can offer some of the families and coaches.
Yeah, so let's just start with what the nervous system is, right? And so, we say nervous system really blanketly, but we have a couple different nervous systems, right? We have our central nervous system, our peripheral nervous system. When we're talking about the nervous system and regulation, we're talking about the autonomic nervous system, which is a part of your peripheral nervous system. It lives inside of your body, and basically, its two main jobs, right, are to keep you safe and alive and to help you kind of adjust to the demands of your experience, right? So really, and it connects the mind and the body for you to be able to do that. So really, the autonomic nervous system is the foundation of anything you're going to do as an athlete, really anything you're going to do as a person, right? And it's important because what I have found in the last 6 years of doing this work is that so many athletes actually have a nervous system and they're operating from a nervous system that's very dysregulated. And so what do we mean by dysregulation and regulation? Well, think about regulation and having a nervous system, right? And you can even think more generally as like a mind-body system that is functioning from an optimal place. You have all your kind of internal bodily systems. They're regulated, right? Again, they're all in harmony. They're working together. And homeostasis can happen, all the above, right? However, that's not life. And life requires us to go through hard, tough, sometimes unsafe things, right? And so what happens is in order to go through those things, in order to live life and do a bunch of different things, our nervous system has to help us shift, right? Physiologically so that we can engage and do those things. So let's think about it this way, right? For an athlete to hang out on the couch and watch a TV show and be with their family, right? That is not the same level or what we call activation, right? Mind and body as it would be if they were to step out on the field and play, right? Now, where this becomes really important, right, is this issue of kind of safety and unsafety, right? And so what I was saying earlier with performance anxiety, really any anxiety, what that means is that your nervous system is really the moderator of, am I safe or am I unsafe? Because if I'm unsafe, right, I have to take care of that and I have to do something about it. And that is when we shift into dysregulation. And so what I have found, right, is that, and we shift into dysregulation for a lot of different things. I mean, look at the life of particularly a college athlete right now, right? There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of things to be anxious about, right, as a college athlete right now. But that's also just life, right? And so we are actually meant to shift back and forth between dysregulation and regulation, right? That's actually a really good thing, right? So the ultimate goal is to have a nervous system that can be flexible, right? And for a youth athlete, right, we want that flexibility. We want them to be able to go through a really challenging or hard experience, right? But then come back down and return to regulation and safety. The problem is we've got a lot of people that get stuck. They get stuck in that kind of, again, like perceived or real place of threat in what we call our stress response, and they live there. And that it's not a bad thing to go into our stress response, but we were not meant to live there. And when we experience chronic dysregulation, that has massive impacts on our life, our cognitive functioning, how we process and navigate emotions, how we interact and communicate with each other. And so really, more often than not, especially at the youth level, so much of youth athlete behavior and response and emotional activation can be looked at from the lens of the nervous system, right? Like something is, a kid never does something, right, just randomly, right? There's always a nervous system response happening underneath, okay? And so I think that the real power, especially for more elite athletes, lies in understanding this entire process. Because when you understand this process and how the nervous system works and how the nervous system lives inside of you to help you engage in life, that's a superpower, right? Because in any given moment, you're able to really distinguish, okay, I'm in this experience, what's happening in this experience, and how am I responding to this experience, right? I can take that data and that information and then implement tools and skills and strategies to navigate more effectively. That is kind of my whole premise of why I think the nervous system is so important. And then I think particularly at the youth level, right? What we were just talking about with performance anxiety, right? That kind of parent-child interaction, like that's all nervous system, because we actually know that our nervous systems respond and interact and communicate with other nervous systems. Our ability and our athletes' ability to regulate their nervous system comes from the co-regulation that they get from parents. I want parents to think about it this way. Like when you are born or when your child comes into the world, they quite literally have no ability to take care of themselves unless you take care of them. So that bond, right, that attachment between your nervous system and their nervous system is quite literally the foundation of how they can eventually one day regulate their own nervous system, which is regulating their own emotions.